Hi everyone, really happy to be with you today to share this session about API integration augmented AI. My name is Pierre-Olivier Patin. I'm based in Paris, France, and I'm a global CTO apps and cloud at Sogeti. In this session, we will explore the convergence between GenAI and APIs. So it will be mainly a prospective session. We will dive into this new disruption that we can see to be AI-driven in building API and integration, and mostly to connect ecosystem and companies. We will see and discover how intelligent interface can be really reshaped with modern development practices, and especially with all what we are seeing with AI power solution. And what is interesting is we will also track and observe the evolution year over years, because we had exactly the same session last year with a different spectrum of technology. But let's move forward. First, in this API journey, I would like to highlight two main scenarios that we are seeing. It's mainly we are building APIs, and then we try to integrate apps and data in the different companies. And to do that, you know probably perfectly the journey and the methodology on what we are seeing behind the scene for each of the one. As you can see, you need to gather functional and non-functional requirements, define specification, design specification, code APIs, creating sample of data with the unit test, for sure perform continuous integration, and eventually make some evolution during your journey in creating API, for example, of moving from API to GraphQL. In the other hand, same story for apps and data integration. We will have to gather requirement, and especially mixing requirement from functional and technical. We will have to define mapping of specification between the different systems. We will have to code or eventually to compose in a low-code, no-code some integration. Again, creating sample data, unit testing, synthetic data, and perform continuous integration and validating what you are providing to your system and company. And as we can see, mainly we are observing some concerns that are not just technical. At the end, we are taking a lot of time in the requirement analysis. We need to understand stakeholders' needs and concern. We need every time to review, discuss about the scope definition. On the pure development and testing part, it is an iterative development, and we need to provide a comprehensive testing. It's every time a matter of people collaborating and communicating in a cross-functional way, providing documentation, sharing the knowledge that belongs to the company. And mainly what we can observe is to have the ratio between specification versus doing is really unbalanced, because at the end we are specifying a lot for a small part of development, and we are mostly on this process relying on document specification, and every time we get also some concern of getting access to the different system, interface, or environment. But let me rewind what we did just last year in 2023 at the same event in the Apidays Paris in 2023. We demonstrate, and I quote this slide as the last century, but last year, we were mostly in the era to talk about prompt engineering, and we were in a post-GPT 3.5, just to locate in time where we were at this period. And as you can see, we were able, through ChatGPT, through prompt engineering, to provide API specification, to create code generation, to create the code with code generation, to create the unit test related to this code, to provide some transformation. We were able to transform from API to GraphQL, and also to provide, as you can see on the bottom right, integration specification and mapping to integrate system in the company, in the enterprise. So it was working, it was successful, and it was really promising. But today, if we come back to the current situation, what we are observing, it's a real shift or cumulative evolution. And today we are talking about agentic, and we are post GPT 4.0. And what we can see, it is described in this schema. This way of working now, infusing GenAI, prompt interaction, as a multi-agent system. So as you can see, if you are looking to the center of the schema, having a multi-agent system, a supervisor or a kind of coordinator able to address, interact with specialized agents, each agent being fed on a knowledge of context. And as you can see, you have also a mix between agent or eventually rule-based workflow that you can compose through this multi-agent system. What is interesting is multi-agent system can call over a multi-agent system. Traditional apps can also eventually call this multi-agent system. And mainly today, a user through eventually a context of apps can interact with this multi-agent. Just as a reference, we can see also if we are addressing some aspect of the model to see how the evolution between 3.5 that I was mentioning to 4.0 is now really powerful between, as you can see, the different level between undergraduate and graduated level reasoning through the different LLM available today. So as you can see now, if we apply exactly the same scenario that we were seeing last year, how to, again, to take benefits of GenAI in building API and also creating integration between systems, let me introduce you your new team, your new agentic team, and we will work with a supervisor, I get introduced, but now in the loop, a business analyst, an API developer, a code reviewer, a tester, an API designer, and I can create agent-specific purpose like a logic app, Azure Logic App expert. Let me share with you your new open space. If you are agent, you have an agentic open space, and this agentic open space, as you can see, can be a canvas on which you will dispose agent, relation between agent, and eventually other technical system, to make it happen your multi-agent system. And let me introduce your new agentic terminals, which will be not anymore a complex application on which you need to fulfill many information. It will be mainly a prompt that you can address through a chat terminal and interactive with the system. But let's now move to the demo. On what we would like to demonstrate is to solve two challenges. The first one is to build a new API. And what is interesting, it's let's go into a sample fictive scenario use cases, having a company, SmartSip, would like to connect the coffee machine that they are operating for their client. What is interesting, it's not a technical requirement, it's really an objective, a high-level objective that we would like to achieve. And what is interesting, as you can see, and we will see the demonstration just after, we are able to give this objective as a prompt. So we don't need anymore to provide details about the prompt the system will manage for us. And second challenge that we would like to demonstrate is how we will interact apps and data. Again, in the same way, I would like to integrate the coffee machine system with a billing system. And as you can see, for sure, we need to be related on something that is concrete. So we are defining in a prompt two characteristics of the API. The first API, coffee machine API, and the second, the billing machine system that we will see just after. Now, let me switch to the demo. So again, welcome in your new agentic open space. And as you can see here, I prepare a demo on which we will go through the different scenarios. So as you can see, the first one, we will go in the integration multi-agent. So as you can see, you recognize the map on the Canva that I provided you just before. And here, as you can see, you have on this Canva several types of components. We can summarize them. A supervisor, workers, that will be the agent, an LLM, like you all know, like for example, OpenAI, and also a retriever to be able to get some information coming from document being the knowledge of the company. As you can see, the supervisor has a binding with a chat model, and we will see it here. In that case, it is OpenAI with GPT for all latest. If I come back now to the supervisor has a definition, and here it is a prompt that belongs to the supervisor. And as you can see, the supervisor is autonomous to coordinate agents. There is no predefined sequence that is specified here. And we can also define multiple interaction between the different agents and the supervisor to achieve the task we would like to perform. Now, let me introduce you the different team members, agentic team members. You have the business analyst, and we can review the prompt of the business analyst every time defining the context, what we expect from the business analyst, on which context the business analyst will leverage. Here we will bind some document that is this knowledge of the company. I can switch to the API developer. The API developer, again, has a context to understand his role, but also the language to code the API. Let's move now to the code reviewer. We will propose to improve and to be more precise on the code, well written, performant, and also adding eventually comments. And let's finish meeting the tester agent, again, looking for quality engineering and testing to provide a robust and quality of the code that we will define, and also double check and validate the functional capabilities that we would like to achieve. If I move now to the retriever, the role of the retriever is to provide knowledge that is coming from the company to be used by the different agents. And as you can see here, we are able to create what we name an OpenAI embedding, loading a PDF file that represents the knowledge of the company, and we can upsert this knowledge, as you can see here, providing information about what is a coffee machine in the context of this company. We don't expect to have the LLM be generative or creative on this characteristic. We would like to really to leverage the content of the company. Now, our multi-agent system is ready. We can interact with, and as you can see here in a test mode, we can interact, putting exactly the same objective that I mentioned just before. I would like to connect the coffee machine we are operating for our client, and the supervisor will handle this request, interact with the different agents. The agent will leverage, when it is needed, the knowledge of the company to produce the best output. As you can see here, we have also the capability, there is a flow of conversation that we will review just after, but we have also some control. As you can see here, the supervisor will understand as a trace that the supervisor is asking to the next agent, the business analyst. And as you can see, the supervisor is also reinterpreting the prompt in a way to interact with the business analyst, and also summarizing what are the different team members available for the next conversation. Again, if, for example, here I'm looking about the thread of discussion with the business analyst, as you can see, when the content on the knowledge that we put to the business analyst is used, we have something that create a reference to that knowledge. And here we can understand that the answer from the business analyst was provided with using this knowledge provided with RAG. I'm just here enumerating the state of each agent during the flow of conversation. Here it is the API developer, again, having the instruction reinterpreted by the supervisor. Here you have the code reviewer with the same reinterpretation of the supervisor related to the context on my initial ask. And lastly, the tester with the same instruction reinterpreted. Now, let me show you how it works. You remember it was my initial request. Here, I would like to connect the coffee machine we are operating for our client. And you can see the supervisor asking the business analyst answering about the functional specification that are expecting, leveraging as an attribute, not in a creative way, exactly the attributes on the object that are defining a coffee machine in the context of this company. And here, again, going inside all the features that we are expecting and managing as the object of the coffee machine. And as you can see, after the business analyst, the supervisor is still coordinating the conversation, talking them to the API developer, taking the specification produced by the functional analyst, and providing exactly in the language requested, not the JS, all the information to provide the code related to the different characteristics that we define. Okay, then the supervisor again is handling what was produced just before, asking to the code reviewer for more deep elaboration of what we can do. So as you can see here, the code reviewer is making a lot of comment about what was produced. And the supervisor talking now to the tester and asking the tester to create the right test case, as you can see, to validate the behavior of the API that we define, and also, as you can see, providing data to test the API. But what is interesting is after having a first sequence of talking to each agent, the supervisor is talking again and interacting again with the tester to make some refinement. And the supervisor now is talking again to the API developer to take into account the different comments from the reviewer and from the tester. And as you can see, if you compare, if you remember the content of the code produced just before to this one, you have more control, you have more interpretation, especially about the objects that are composing the characteristic of a coffee machine. I continue, and as you can see here, as new code was produced, the supervisor is asking again the tester to validate the code that was changed. So there is more and more test inputs. And then the supervisor is finishing the task, mentioning that it is successful and all the functionality has been implemented and tested. And there is extra content that is provided just after. So as you can see, it is a way to create a multi-agent. And now the best way here, it is for our internal test on purpose. I will be able also to expose as an endpoint this multi-agent system in your dedicated UI. So for example, here we have a sample interface, and your multi-agent system is becoming now just a services, so we don't know and we abstract the complexity of multi-agent behind. And as you can see, you can request exactly the same objective, focusing the prompt focusing on the objective, not all the tasks to perform behind this objective, to get exactly the same result that we just had before. As you can see here, we can review exactly the same conversation on the same discussion on result produced. This is to create an API based on the context on using multi-agent. Now, let's move to the second use case, how to integrate two systems, the one from coffee machine API and the second about a billing system. Here, exactly the same way of working. We have still a supervisor with a prompt. We have still some workers, they are different. In that case, I have still a business analyst, and I'm more precise about what I'm expecting, especially about the mapping between the different interface. I have now introduced an API designer that need to provide the integration. I have now an API developer with high knowledge about Logic App, which is my target solution to bridge these two API and to create this integration. And I have still a tester in the loop working to validate what we are doing. Again, I'm still here loading some knowledge of the company from the enterprise. I'm again inserting, showing the different content loaded. And now I can start my ask, my prompt, asking exactly the same objective that I mentioned before. I would like to have an integration getting information from API 1 and sending information to API 2. I define API 1 and I define API 2. It could be sent directly eventually through RAG, or here I can request for the demo purpose. And as you can see, I have exactly the same conversation that was driven by the supervisor with the different agent. And as you can see, the most interesting here is to see how the business analyst is interpreting the mapping that I'm requesting. And here I'm able to create a table defining the different fields of API 1, the different field of API 2, asking to the system to make an association of the API, providing a confidence score, so to rate the confidence to align these different fields, and also to provide me a first view on what will be the transformation if I need to integrate this different data and information. And as you can see, location is mainly associated to the address, a company is associated to an enterprise. As you can see here, I have an invoice that is associated to the fee, but it is in dollars, in euro. So here the system detects to convert the value from USD to euro. I have a data invoice on a date, which is not exactly the same word. Here the system is providing a mapping. And again, I have a tag on a model that probably can be similar understanding. And here there is a suggestion to assume that eventually the tag can be associated to the model. And again, I have the same conversation between first the business analyst, then the API designer providing the solution, defining the solution. Okay. The supervisor is then asking to the Logic App expert, the API developer, providing the Logic App code. What is interesting here, if we really make a copy paste of this code into an Azure Logic App, it works. So there is no issue. We can save this code and then to see what is the design related to this code. And the supervisor is talking to the tester to validate what we are proposing and eventually advising what are the different conversions that we can do between the different fields. So this is conclude the demo on the multi-agent system. And as you can see, we can create API, not just the code, but really a sequence from understanding, analyzing, specifying, coding, reviewing, and providing the test for the creation of one API. And second, through the second challenge, we are able to make the association, the mapping between two interfaces, and to provide, again, an analysis, a specification, the code, and also some validation aspect like unit testing regarding this use case. Let me now come back to the slide. So let me move now to the takeaway. So the main lesson learned that we can see is the agentic approach make GenAI really effective. So we switch, if we compare these two examples between individual prompt in ChatGPT last year and now the same prompt orchestrated in an autonomous way through a system, it's make really effective because in the past we were not managing the collaboration aspect that we can now handle through the agentic approach. It's more powerful. The result itself is more powerful because the prompts are more elaborated, and also now the LLM are even more powerful. What we would like to envision through this session is really to define a new normal of software engineering that will be amplified by GenAI. And the main takeaway is really we need to stay every time related to a domain expert, a tech expert, to define and to validate these different result or interaction. What I suggest as a next step is to bring more expertise to the agent. As you can see, we can put a lot of knowledge to this agent, so we can load PDF about best practices, about use cases already made in the company, to create advanced prompt, to provide state-of-the-art RAG, so again, more content through the RAG, and eventually on all the aspects, like for example, the coding or the testing. For sure, in this case, it is a prospective session, so we need to define more RAG to bring additional enterprise knowledge. And for sure, we can validate and evaluate even more advanced scenario with a combination of complexity of knowledge, mapping, interaction between agents. I hope you enjoy this session. I was really happy to share with you to see how we can track and observe what is happening year to year between ChatGPT example and now more agentic approach, and to see how we can for real build a multi-agent system to achieve complex tasks, coordinated tasks for your company. Thank you very much.